Hello, guys. It's Glermit here, and we're joined by the Optimist again.
Glad to be back, guys.
Yeah,
Hope you guys have been enjoying the podcast.
yeah. We're now on episode 3, although at the time of recording, you've only seen episode 1, so we are following on from the last one. So far, I mean, everyone does seem pretty excited to have the podcast back. In the next couple of episodes, there is a chance we will be bringing some guests on. Um, Whether or not that is recorded before or after you see that is a different story. However, we are planning on doing so. Anyways, I normally open up. So, would you like to open up with the topic for today's podcast?
Yeah. Today we are going to be discussing farming guides. I know Glermit has made a video on his channel. If you haven't watched it, why don't you go ahead and pause this podcast and go watch his video, and then come back and um, discuss with us what you think. But I'm going to be giving my farming guide, and Glermit's going to be giving his. We're going to just talk through the pros and cons of what this does, and yeah, see
Yeah.
what you guys think.
Just want to say, guys, if you do go and watch my farming guide, I'll see you guys in 1 hour. It's a long one. It's a long one, right? So we are going to be talking about farming guides, obviously, like the Optimist did say there. Although I do think it's important we do just state we're also going to be talking a little bit just about things to do throughout different GP thresholds, and these can be things that aren't common knowledge. So actually, I just want to start off real quick. This is not really one of the segments, but hey, I'm going to add it in. So I actually started my free to play account like a week ago, to follow my farming guide. And this time I will actually follow through and complete it. It's actually kind of funny. I went on YouTube the other day, and the first video that popped up was someone doing a Star Killer rush. And all the comments were like, "This is unique. I've never seen this before." And I was thinking, buddy, I made a video on this like 3 years ago. The problem is I never completed it. So, yeah. Anyways, what I was actually going to say is I've actually been kind of struggling with the free to play because now you level up so quick. Optimus, I don't know if you've done a new account anytime recently, but you progress so quick. I'm already level 56.
Oh wow.
Yeah, you progress really quick, and actually, I'm finding you progress too quick because although you get all the extra energy, because you don't have those days of refreshing the energy, you don't actually have enough time to farm the gear you need to get characters geared up quick enough. So I'm kind of hit a wall. I'm currently doing the mod battles, and I just can't beat tier 2 with the 5-star
Oh,
characters because I haven't had enough days to farm teams to 5 stars. So I was doing a little bit of researching, and I think I found a solution. So, guys, if you are starting a new account and you want an easy way to do these battles, farm Hondo. Hondo is literally Cantina 1 A, B, C, D, something like that. He's low energy. You only need to take him to 5-star. He's neutral, and he will basically solo any battle in the let's quit story mode. Like Cantina battles, all of this. So that's what I've had to do. But yeah, it kind of surprised me because I made this farming guide, and I've obviously played the game, made so many accounts in the past, but there wasn't that catch up mechanic there is now. You just level up so quick. Before it would take you, I don't know, like 3 or 4 days to go from level 50 to 52. And
mm-hmm.
in those 3 or 4 days, that's a lot of energy you're spending, a lot of attempts refreshing characters. So by default, the characters are going up the star levels. Whereas now you're just shoved in the deep end, and they do give you a lot of shards. Like I have a lot of characters 4 or 5 stars just given to me, but they're not necessarily characters I want to invest in. So that's just something I just wanted to jump out there and point out. It's quite a cool thing.
No, and for sure, I think that was one of those things when I was going through like doing my research for this video or deciding like,
Mhm.
you know, how I would plan out the new player experience. It's been such a long time since I was a new player.
Yeah.
Like, gosh, I think I was a new player when Galactic Legends were first coming out,
Hmm.
and we've had like, what's this now, like 6 or 7 years of GLs. Like,
Hmm.
uh, I think 5 to 6 years of GLs, and it's wild like to look back and see how much the game has changed, like not even counting light speed bundles or anything like that, but like the updates that they made to the gear economy, to raids, to the characters they give you on unlock. It's crazy to see the differences.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there by talking about not being a new player. Guys, this is the one thing we're gonna want you to take away from today's podcast if you're listening. And really just take this away when you're watching any farming guide of any description. Just remember that if someone releases a farming guide today, this is not the route we used to build our account. And it's very important you guys realize that. It doesn't mean that what we're saying is wrong, but it does mean that obviously as things develop and time continues to go on, it may be somewhat, I don't say outdated. I don't really know the right word here. Hopefully, I don't know if you can understand my point here. But basically,
I mean, again, for all we know, in the next era that comes, they're going to say, hey, we're going to make hierotechs easier for new players to acquire, or like, we're going to make these new legendaries basically free. There's just certain things that the game is going to change just as it gets bigger. It's hard as new game power creep goes. Like I know like lightspeed bundles are one of these big things. Like it's hard to, like, if you're not getting a lightspeed bundle, like you're just going to get out geared by players that are doing this, and it's always been that to an extent.
yes.
In the early game, so nothing new, just different coat of paint.
Yeah, my free-to-play account, I should have really waited for lightspeed bundles to disappear. My top 50 is already all the Imperial Remnant, like, the Gideon lightspeed bundle. So there's no way I ever climb up there for the time being. Yeah, guys, it is important you do understand that people can spend money. Today's podcast isn't specifically a free-to-play farming guide focused podcast. We're just going to be talking about farming guides in general. Obviously, if we go from a free-to-play perspective, you can just add in the spending money as and when you feel is necessary. I just want to touch one last thing on the Lightspeed bundle speak. Don't be Don't be put off by the fact that people do have these bundles. I spoke about it in my farming guide. Me and Optimist have spoken about it before. Just because people are spending money, it's basically the same as before. People will spend money on the gear to skip stuff, but there's certain teams in the game. For example, let's take Darth Revan. If you do not have Darth Revan with all of his Zetas, specific, which Zeta is it that makes him unable to be assisted on?
I believe that is his unique.
Yep.
I've got his kit pulled up here. I'm just going to double check.
Cool.
Yes, his unique.
Yeah, so for example, say you don't have this one. It's going to make Imperial Troopers even easier, especially low gear, because they're not going to have good mods. You don't have good Zetas. And yeah, just because you're buying all the gear, okay, there will be ground arenas you're going to lose because you're probably less than 1 million GP, less than 2 million GP, and your opponent has everything. And I understand, these ones suck. But there's also going to be ground arenas where your opponent sets their lightspeed characters. They just rely on the fact that they have relics. And you might not have that many relic teams, but they might be setting the resistance team, like Scavenger Ray, normal Finn, normal Poe, not even Zori. And then they might set another team, which could be the Gideon with his stuff. These aren't hard teams to beat, even with low gear. So this is where roster building, and I would say go listen to our previous podcast to learn all about that, and modding, which is all part of farming guides, and everything else does come into play. It does allow you to kind of keep up. Of course, there's going to be battles you're going to lose because it happens to everyone. Man, I was in Kyber too, and I'm still getting out-muscled by people that have way more than me. It's just, unless you're right at the top, it's always going to be something that happens.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I think one of the things to just keep in mind, I think you said, is that people will always outspend you. There's always going to be a player that's either better than you or that spends more than you. And I think during one of our first or I think it was our previous episode, we were talking about finding a reason why you enjoy playing the game,
Yes.
doing these certain trying to avoid burnouts, anything like that. That's part of it. especially with selecting your farming routes, your farming guides, is find something that you enjoy and that is gonna allow you to avoid burnouts. And don't be discouraged when you hit a wall, or you look around and say, man, these people seem like they're doing better than I am. Trust me, this game is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And what you'll come to find is that a lot of these people who sprint out early will end up, unless they keep spending like that, um, they'll hit a wall, and you'll
Mhm.
find that you'll eventually catch up to where they are.
I think that's a great analogy there. And the very, very final thing I just want to take away from this is when you do watch a farming guide, and we're not talking about this podcast, but a video, for example, Arnold's, Nooch, Darth Loquitur, mine, there's plenty of others on G2 also has one. Don't just watch that one guide and say, I am going to follow this because this is perfect. No farming guide is perfect. Everyone has a different spin on everything. So, for example, some people prefer just going straight for Jabba, going straight for Leia, going straight for JML, that trinity there. Some people, such as Darth Loquitur, prefer the approach of going for the Executor above everything else and then going for the Galactic Legends. Some people, like myself, prefer a completely different approach, which, if you guys haven't watched my farming guide, you're going to enjoy it. But what I'm saying is everyone has different ideas and reasoning. And I would say, as long as the person who's made the farming guide can give you a reason why they think it's worth it, then it's a good farming guide. If someone posts a video, or if you speak to someone in a guild, and trust me, I've been in the guilds where there's loads of chats and it's like advice sections, specifically farming guide advice, and some of the people will just give you the weirdest takes ever, and they can't give you a reason why. And that's the difference between someone that gives you a good advice and a good farming guide to follow, and someone that doesn't, because you need to understand why. Yeah, it might be a bit unique, or it might go down some corners, twists and turns, or whatever, that aren't necessarily the norm. But if they can give you a reason that seems logical for why you should do it, then it's advice worth listening to. But basically, the takeaway from that is just go watch a couple of farming guides, especially if you're a new player, because you're going to learn some more. For example, some people might focus more on fleets, some people might focus more on characters. You might even learn some things that you didn't know before, and maybe you'll learn something today. So would you like to get us started with your plan?
Yes. So my farming guide is, I like to take more of a well-rounded approach. I want
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that I'm able to engage with as much of the game as possible, and I'm able to have as much access to resources as much as possible. So you may find that there might be some players, if you go this route, that are going to be better at GAC, better at TW, or better in a specific raid or mode. And again, caveat with raids. All raids are subject to change. I am
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily taking raids into account with this, just because um, by the time that raids become relevant, you will probably be towards the end of this farming guide, and you'll be in the rat race just like the rest of us, farming whatever new teams we need to farm for raids. Um, so the core basis of my farming guide here is um, to get ready for conquest at 4 mil GP. And I actually, if you want to, I'm going to plug one of my own videos, one of the few that I've made. I made a guide to Conquest. This was years ago, like right when Conquest first came out.
Mm-hmm.
And I still stand by everything that I said there. I think what I said still holds up. But in order to be doing hard conquest at 4 mil GP, you need access to specific teams or specific types of teams, and you're going to need a Galactic Legends. And I am going with Leia as the first Galactic Legend. I think she's one of the easiest to acquire early on, with a secondary focus of the Executor. Um, the second pillar in this farming guide is Jabba by about 6 million. My rule of thumb is about every 2 mil GP. I think it's a good idea to have plans to go for another Galactic Legends. Obviously, uh, go for whatever you want, but I think that's a good rule of thumb. So to base my accounts for like the first 2 mil GP, I think the basis of your account should be Phoenix, Ewoks, Imperial troopers, and that includes Iden, um, bounty hunters, and Night Sisters. These teams will give you access to assault battles. They have access to Omicrons should you invest in that they're good Omicrons, and they'll give you advantages in whatever the modes that you choose. And they're all available in different shipments so that you are not required, so you're not just stuck doing hard nodes. And they also are using earlier released characters, so you're not facing the Tech crunch right out the gates. Um, One of the reasons that I chose Leia first as the first GL to go for, and I'm going to pull up her requirements here. They are as follows: Captain Rex, Nisa, both at Relic 7, Wicket at Relic 3, Lando Relic 5, Akbar Relic 3. Um, the As you're working your way up to getting the Executor and to getting Leia, Akbar is actually a really good opening fleet, especially once you unlock the Millennium Falcon, which if you're going for the Executor, you're going to have those bounty hunters, you're going to have the bounty hunter ships. That'll get you the Falcon. Once you get that, you are going to be able to compete with the negotiators, the resistances, the malevolences, various Empire fleets. You're going to be able to compete with them. Um, Especially if you invest the gear, which Leia's requirements, as we see here later, or some of the side teams with it, go and support that. Um, I mentioned the Ewoks as one of my earlier teams to start with. I don't think people have really invested in Ewoks, but Ewoks are a lot like Imperial troopers if you put the right resources in them, especially with the release of Nisa. Uh, Nisa makes the C3PO event a lot easier. And what you'll also come to find is that C3PO is a very, very good home for Ewoks. I would actually argue that C3PO's best home is with Ewoks. Um,
That is a hot take, but I
they're
like it.
it is a hot take, but like you get so many
No,
bonuses
I rate
and
it.
like um but if you have the mods with them, you can get a wicked opening turn order that most teams can't recover from. And I would recommend in the early game either one of the Ewok Omicrons, if that's your fancy. But being able to do that, that'll be a good PvP team, as well as also Nisa makes them more PvE reliant.
Hmm.
So and also with three of them, I think Chirpa is in the second round. Three of them being layer. That's a good use of your investments there is to invest in that team. Second round being Scout Trooper R7, R2, R8, Captain Han, Relic 5, Rebel Leia, Relic 5. Rebel Leia is a little bit more difficult to get since she is a TB character, but they did put her into the guild shipments, and I would recommend using your guild currency to unlock her. Um, Again, Scout Trooper's going to go with your troopers, makes them even better. None of these characters really outside of Leia, and if you're in a guild that is running light side Hoth, you'll get Rolo pretty quickly. Um, and last bit of requirements: Drogon, CLS, Boosh, 3PO and Chewie, Lobot. You're going to most likely get CLS by accident. His requirements aren't that difficult to get, and it's a good team to go for and get there to get CLS. But so the goal is to get Leia by 4 mil. When you're going through those teams that I mentioned, Phoenix, Ewoks, Iden, Troopers, Bounty Hunters, Night Sisters. Bounty Hunters, I would recommend going for the bounty hunters that are going to be used in the events that you're going to need. So I'm talking Bosk, Boba Fett, Dengar, um, Mando, and Grief. Since BAM is needed for the Razor Crest, I would go ahead and get those. And that right then and there is a usable bounty hunter team for most of the early to mid game. And then Night Sisters. Night Sisters are just an all around. They've always been a cheesy team, and uh, especially with Marin coming to the game, Marin's Omicron is a very good Omicron to use. Um, it'll be useful to, I'd say, at least up to endgame. So, and Night Sisters will give you, and especially with Marin, you can get challenge tier 3 pretty easily with light relic investments, so you don't have to do it right away. But as you are starting to progress, that's something that you're able to do. They're great in territory battles and Rise of the Empire, in Darkside Geo, um, in Darkside Hoth. Like you can use Night Sisters everywhere. Um, so that's the goal. Again, I'm not going to tell you which teams to farm first, which teams to farm second, but you're able to play. Phoenix is great in TB. Ewoks are great in PvP. Um, Iden, Bounty Hunters, Night Sisters, they're all used in multiple different areas. And so then when it comes to Conquest, you're going to have your Leia team, you're going to have your various legendaries. I would recommend just if you're capable of going for certain legendaries that come across, go ahead and unlock the characters. But besides the one that are necessary, I wouldn't necessarily focus on gearing them up. But the other thing with these early teams is they're not very Zeta reliant. Most of Phoenix, Ewoks, Troopers, Bounty Hunters, I'd say Night Sisters are probably the most Zeta reliant. But you're not really needing a lot of Zetas. You're not needing a lot of really crazy gear or crazy relics. Um, and the goal would be to have Leia by 4 mil. Leia is arguably still one of the best GLs in the game. Executor is one of the best fleets in the game. So you're there, you're at 4 mil. I would then recommend, and might be a hot take, and this would be a slight pivot for me. I don't think I've seen many content creators recommend this, but I would recommend going for Dr. Aphra next. Two of Leia's requirements is Captain Han and Rolo, and Sana is a really, really good lead to run with them. Um, Especially if you give her TW Omicron. Sana is really solid, and especially in the mid game. That's a really good mid game team. Um, and they've got a lot of decent tags that go with there that go there. So, and when looking at Dr. Afra's requirements, Hondo, the murder droids, and Sana, all of them are very, very early farming requirements. Like they're like 12 energy hard nodes, 8 or 10 energy cantina battles. You can get these characters farmed really quickly, and I believe they're all accelerated now.
Yep, they are.
And Hondo is an amazing plug and play character. In fact, he was designed to just go on any team, especially scoundrel or smuggler teams. But you could just put him on any team. That's one of the beauties of his kit. I would recommend going for Aphra. She will help in conquest, cheese certain feats. And when you're looking at this here now, with these teams that you farmed, the teams that I've recommended, most of these teams are not teams that require speed or incredible mods or gear or relic investments to do what they need to do. So as you're going into some of these later phases of conquest, they're going to be able to hold up with lower stamina. And it's not about, well, I can only run them to 70 or 80% stamina because their speed stops going there. No, you can run them down pretty low and they're going to still be able to be reliable because what they counter and their mechanics are very, very sound, and they don't require, in addition to like with the data disc that you have, like they're going to be able to hold up. Another thing before you go for Jabba at 6 mil, I would argue the most important team that you can farm in this game, period, is Inquisitors. They're not really useful until about the mid game, but once you get Grand Inquisitor, the team just goes up from there. Once you can unlock the conquest ships, this team is quite literally, I can't think of a team that's better built for this game. They're really expensive, and so it's, that's why I say, like, just maybe put them on the back burner and slowly farm them over this time. But they have PvP viability, they have PvE viability, they have the Empire tag, the Inquisitor tag, the Unaligned Force User tag that gets you access to so many datacrons. They get you access to using them in different events. And especially once you're able to unlock Reva, that is, again, one of the best teams that can counter a lot of different things. Grand Inquisitor Lead is also very underrated, and that team is able to do a lot. I know for the longest time, my go to Omicron Qui-Gon counter was just Grand Inquisitor. That was an automatic 65 banners, and it made dealing with that team in Grand Arena so much easier because I think in the early game, especially like even into the mid game, Qui-Gon's a headache.
Mhm.
And if you can just use Inquisitors to quickly take care of them, it's so much easier. They make Conquest a lot easier. I think now that the hate has kind of died down, I think people are starting to appreciate them more for what they are. Um, and then by this time, I think you should be around 6 mil GP. You should be rounding out. I think some of the legendaries that were going to hold you back for Jabba was Jedi Knight Luke. And I'm just double checking his requirements here. Um, yeah, Jedi Knight Luke is just the big one. You should be able to farm and get these characters here. And between now having Jabba, Afro Inquisitors, Leia, Executor, you're pretty well off. You have access to a lot of different materials and um, sources of just passive income, and it will make going forward new releases or new events so much easier to get your to dip your feet in. So um, I haven't seen some other content creators' farming guides, so I'm not quite sure if this is similar or different to others. But this is what I would recommend. These are the teams that I would recommend farming first, and the GL routes to go. Because I mean, let's be honest, this game's about Galactic Legends. It will make a difference. The types of GLs that you have will make the course of your accounts different from others. So yeah. Um,
Wow.
what knee-jerk reaction, Glimmer? What's your thoughts here?
My word, that was detailed. I loved it. Do you know what? I like that you brought up Afra because I didn't bring up Afra, and I don't really know anyone else that brought up Afra. And as far as Journey Guide characters go, a lot of people always say, Starkiller's better, or GI is better because of Reva, or Jedi Knight Cal, Bo-Katan Mandalorian, but no one ever really gives Afra the chance. And do you know what I like about Afra? She's 4 characters.
Four characters, four
two,
easy to acquire
yep,
characters.
2 of them, well, technically, 3 of them can be in her team because Hondo can go in the Afra team. And like we said, Sana goes with the Rolo pair with Captain Han, which, by the way, Sana for me is I'm not going to say she's the best character in the game, or one of them, because she's not. She's so far away from it. But a good roster has those mid-tier teams. Something a lot of people need to understand, especially when it comes to farming guides and everything like this, is you can't just say, I want to go for Jabba, Leia, JMO, JKO, General Skywalker, and just miss out all the side characters, Because those side teams is what's going to be winning you more Grand Arenas, more Territory Wars, doing better in TB, because those side characters are really the depth of your roster. There's only so many teams you can beat in GAG in one match with JML. It's one. You can only use him once. And if you only have the good characters but none of the mid to low tier teams, for example, I was watching someone in Discord, and I'm sure they're going to watch the podcast and comment, and I've just exposed them. Anyway, I was watching them go against Queen Amidala. And their go-to Queen Amidala counter is Leia. They literally don't have a cheaper counter to Queen Amidala, right? And if you go up against her, she does take a good team. But there are low investment teams you can use. But the thing is, they've never taken that time to farm one. So they have to use one of their best teams to do it, right? So when you're building a roster, I do like this idea of going for those. For example, when we talk about Afra, she's your Jabba counter. If Jedi Knight Cal isn't there, she's your JML counter. Don't try it if Jedi Knight Cal's there, because you'll do what happened to me, where I forgot that he makes JML immune to cooldown manipulation, and then I died the very next turn. It does happen. And do you know what else is really good about her? She's great for cleaning up, and this is something very underrated when you're talking about Grand Arena and Territory War. So I do really like your farming plan. It's not too dissimilar. I think almost every content creator, and obviously just general player in the game right now, would say Jabba, JML, Leia is the trio you want. I think that's pretty much general consensus. It is slightly different to mine because obviously, whereas for you go straight for the GL, you go straight for all of this. My approach is more, let's hold back from that and let's build up passive income and then use that to build, right? So it's just the order of how it's all applied. But if you are going to go for a character, it's always nice to go for teams that have the teams built in. So Afra is good for that reason. Also, we did say right at the beginning of the podcast, I spoke about how Hondo is actually a decent early farm just to help you do those missions. And he doesn't take long to farm, guys. I mean, today I did 150 energy and I got 15 to 16 shards. Not that bad, really. So you can get him up and running nice and easy. So yeah, that's the Optimist farming guide, and I do think it's really good. And just remember, guys, it's a guide, it's not a order. You don't need to ever listen to these or watch a video and say, I'm going to follow this to the dot because, hey, things change. For example, on my farming plan, I made the video, then they released the Gungan event. They re-released it because Jar Jar came back. And on my free-to-play, I unlocked Gungans, and do you know what? I wouldn't go out my way to farm them. I would never make a farming plan and say farm Gungans. But having used them, they're actually really good for early game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, would you go and farm them? Would I make it in a guide? No way. I wouldn't. But this is what I mean, guys. When you're playing the game and you get these opportunities, don't be afraid to go off the trail and take them up. I've had so much success with the Gungans because it's 4 characters. The way they work, if you apply 1 Zeta, obviously I don't have access to these yet. You have the whole shield generator. It does kind of give you that survivability that not many teams give you, which is really nice. I like that you picked up an Iden. Again, I love guides or plans that do include the characters off the tracks. I don't like watching a guide or a video and people are just like, only Galactic Legends, only Journey Guide characters. Iden's fantastic to be talking about. Gungans to some extent, maybe. Afra again for Hondo. Sana. So many people have Rolo and Captain Han and do nothing with them. If you have Sana, you can counter so many teams. Any Empire team, Inquisitor teams before Reaver, you can use your Sana to beat. And the other thing I just want to talk about is you did speak about raids. For me, obviously I spoke about my guide, raids are very important. And the benefit of farming a raid team, there's a couple, guys, when you're doing a farming guide or whatever. You've got to remember that the more teams you have and the more flexibility you have in your roster, the more you can take advantage of datacrons. Now, I know we said in a previous episode we're not going to be talking about them, but I do just want to plug it in because it fits with the theme here. So the current datacron set as of recording, so if you guys are watching this from the future, well, hello. And the second thing is, datacron set is probably gone. It is the Enduring Power set, and Sana has a level 9, which is completely broken. I don't even care what anyone says, it is broken. And with this level 9, and with a dash lead, or you don't have to use dash lead, but with dash lead, for example, and any smugglers, you can max ban a Leia, you can max ban a Jabba, you can max ban a Queen Amidala, you can probably max ban some other teams as well. And if you're a free-to-play or low-spending player, again, this is not whatever I say is obviously bias. Dash, Young Han, these are my favorite characters in the game. I'm always going to have this bias when I talk about them. But they don't get included in these guides. So if you're someone who farms for a raid, obviously I know these weren't in there, but we use Gungans as an example. People farmed Gungans for the raid. And before Darkside Raid came out, guess what, guys? Gungans could beat Kylo Ren. And they still can. I don't know if you've seen that Optimist, but it's pretty cool. I watched it the other day. So if you know, having these extra teams, they do benefit you. You know, going off the trail a little bit, going for that Sana, going for those Gungans, you know, going for Dash maybe and building his squad out. You know, and when the raid comes, say it's a Empire raid, who knows? Maybe the Vanguard Jedi are actually going to be quite good, and then building them up for the raid will benefit you in the long term. So that's what we're kind of saying, guys. Don't just
And
go. Sorry, go on.
one more thing to add with the teams that I recommended here.
Hmm.
Um, Feel free to invest in any of the Omicrons of the teams that like up to Leia at 4 mil. You can't go wrong with really any of these Omicrons. Like any of the ones that you invest in, like Rolo. If you give her an Omicron, great. You will be able to use that team in Lightside Hoth, Lightside Geo, and Rise of the Empire. Like
Hmm.
that's an easy win there. Looking at Grand Arena, you've got I think some of them may fall off later on, like Ewoks, but even still, as long as they still have uses. But like looking at Sherpa, looking at Captain Rex, and TW, like if we're looking at Sana, if we're looking at Hera, like these are all still Omicrons that are being used in the metas right now, and especially like if you're in the early to mid game, these are game changing. Like they go and can get a lot of holds. They can beat a lot of solid teams. Same thing in GAC with Marin. That's a really good Omicron.
Yeah, you're
So
right.
feel free. Like these are all teams that are, Omicrons are so hard to get, but like you can't go wrong with applying any of these.
No, you're right. And just to follow on from what I was saying before, it links in really well with what you just said. Those mid-tier Omicrons, for example, Ewoks in TW, it's a star killer counter, among other stuff. In GAC, not against good teams, but honestly, when I say not against good teams, I did climb up back up to K2. Unfortunately, I dropped out when I lost the last round. But hey, on my way back up, I've realized that people just, even in Kaiba, they don't set good teams. I'm gonna be honest. It's not me trying to disrespect anyone. It's just the truth. Until you get to K2, K1, you're still gonna see these badly modded teams, weird teams that just don't really work anymore. Ewoks can beat Darth Revan teams.
They can beat Darth Revan teams.
Yep.
They can beat Gungan teams.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Again, Nisa really changed the game, and especially like also like if you throw C3PO in there, they can punch up above their weight. Like they don't sleep on Ewoks.
And again, guys, think about it from a Grand Arena point of view. If you're someone who is a smaller player, maybe free to play, whatever, and you're farming, say, Leia, but you're having to take Leia on offense when you farm her to actually win the Grand Arenas, you never know. If you had the teams built up around her to deal with the teams you're going to face, you could probably leave Leia on defense, and who knows, maybe you get that hold. I've seen so many people lately message me, both on YouTube and Discord, and like, hey, Glermit, what do I do? Grand Arena, I can't set teams because my opponent's always going to fall clear and I can't clear them. And I always think to myself, can you really not clear them? Because I would say outside of and it is rare. Some of you are going to reply in the comments and say it happens all the time, but I'm telling you, the statistics show it is rare that you will face that 12 million GP account in Bronzium, for example. You may occasionally, but most of the time there's going to be a couple of million, couple of GLs between you. You can still beat those accounts. It will take time to get the roster in place to do so, but that's where building up these mid-tier teams is. And I think that's what a lot of farming guides do miss out on, And that's why I like the idea of assault battle teams, Imperial Troopers, Aiden, Night Sisters. These are all teams, even Night Sisters. That's your Jabba counter. You can use Night Sisters to set up a two-shot relatively easily. And then obviously you can use Rebel Fighters for the cleanup. You don't even need Kyle Katarn, because I do it all the time. You can just use Pal, Hoth Rebel Scout, and then you can throw in Cassian. You can throw in Biston, for example. These are all requirement characters. Like, you can make a plan. So what I would say is, when you're farming teams, when you're doing all of this, just think, where can I add in an extra relic level? Raids is a good opportunity. T-Bead's a good opportunity. Maybe you just enjoy a character. It's like I've always said in the past, what I like to do personally, and I've done it for my account for a few years, I will do 3 to 4 relic levels for a journey guide, and then I'll do 1 personal gain, because that way you still make good progress towards everything, but you're also reinforcing your roster to a better level. I don't know if you agree with that one or not.
No, no, I think that's really sound advice.
Sweet. Right, we are actually already at 40 minutes long. You went on for a long time talking about your farming guide.
I listen, man. I'm passionate about this. About this guide. I think it was pretty good. I guess I know you have a video,
Mhm.
whereas I don't. Do you want to maybe give the cliff notes of what you were recommending there, with the
Yeah.
caveat that people should go watch your video?
Yep. No, of course. Guys, obviously, this will be a very brief version because otherwise, this podcast will be over an hour long. And we're going to try and keep them to about 45 to 50 minutes long per episode, like we stated in the previous ones. So, I do actually have two videos live. I have the full version, which is 55 minutes long. Do recommend that one. And then I actually have a shorter one that's 10 minutes long, and that just shows the teams I'm farming. Now, my guide is from a completely different approach, and mine is based on passive income. And the idea is that if you can get the income passively over time, it will basically allow you to use that income to overtake people who have spent. Now, that is a little bit controversial, and there has been some disagreements in the comments of my farming guide with people saying, oh, that's just not true because someone who spends, the platform's already higher. And I do agree with that. What you need to understand, guys, is that 90% of people who buy the Lightspeed bundles and 90% of people who spend in general don't then play the game efficiently. And actually, someone who spends a lot of money, and this used to be me in the past, sometimes lack the knowledge to be efficient because they don't have to be. And this is something that a lot of people who know me personally in SWGOH would be able to back up from a few years ago before I started in YouTube. I was spending a lot of money on the game, and my knowledge of counters and strategies and that was okay. It was at a good level. But my knowledge of account building and making the most of resources was not, because why did I ever need to learn it? Because I'm spending money to skip it, if that makes sense. So if you're someone who's free to play and you're investing early on, or even if maybe not even free to play, maybe you do buy last few bundles, but you go back and do the steps from the farming guide, invest in assault battles. You get 70 plus Kyrotech a month from the assault battles alone. You're then getting an additional like 50 if you do the Enoch one, although I didn't include that in my guide. I think it's still too early for that, maybe next year when they're accelerated. You've then got the mods from the Qui-Gon Jinn one with Padawan Obi-Wan. You've got the relic materials. If you're going for Exec, if you're going for Jabba, if you're going for Leia, you don't want to be having to take weeks to farm the relic 8s. If you have those events early on, every 2 to 3 months, you're getting a relic 8 for free. No investment whatsoever. Okay, it may not be exactly for free because it's random what piece of the material you get. Some days you get the injectors, some days you get arrows, but over time it balances out. So it means you can farm other stuff, but you're still getting this passively. And then obviously I go for Bo-Katan Mandalorian. Again, the idea behind it is she gets you into a good guild. You can go for Jedi Knight Cow instead. The real appeal for Bo, though, is she does beat almost anything she wants. She can beat JMK, she can beat Lord Vader. In Grand Arena, she can beat Rey, she can clean up layers. Basically, any team you want, she can beat. And the other thing is, guilds want her because she's that passive income. She's that golden ticket to unlimited Kyrotechs, like we spoke about in a previous podcast here. So that's kind of what my plan is. Obviously, it does include Jabba, Leia, everything else, JML. I actually prioritize JML over Leia, the reason being Conquest. I do think JML is still the best Conquest character in the game. I don't think that's going to ever change. And then in terms of Omicrons, I appreciate it. And then in terms of the Omicrons, I actually make my number one priority Omicron, Padawan Obi-Wan, because you need to be doing well in Conquest. And if it makes life easier, you don't need it necessarily. You can still win without it. But the Omicron's really, really strong. And if it clears you Conquest, that's amazing. Don't forget, guys, when Conquest does come, you have to have beaten the normal mode before you can do hard mode. So just remember that one, guys. Anyways, we are getting a little bit short on time. So any closing notes you want to give?
At the end of the day, whether you go with either Glermit or I's farming guides, just find a route that really suits you and that allows you to stay interested in the game. Because really, this game at its best, it's so much fun when you can engage with all the various forms of content, all the guild content, and it's just a little bit tricky to get involved sometimes just because of just how much there is. But I think between the two of us here, I don't think you can go wrong with either of these two. But yeah, let us know what you guys think, or if there's anything different that you guys would do.
Yeah, so like I said, just to finish off, do guys go out there and watch multiple guides. Listen to both of us here. Go watch Nooch, go watch Arnold, go watch Sonjita, go watch everyone if you have the time, and just take all the knowledge in and make a decision yourself. Don't just go with one plan. The other thing I just want to finish up by saying is the problem with farming guides is if you follow it to the T, you get what I call a cookie cutter roster. Basically, it's like you're making cookies, you've got that little cutter, you're making gingerbread men, they're all identical. What you need to do is you need to go and add the little smiley faces and little eyes to them and make them unique, okay? You know, make them stand out. So use the roster as a guide, but don't say, I'm going to follow this exact. Maybe there's a team that comes out and you want to farm it, do it. Have some personality to your roster. That is the end of the podcast. Hopefully it will be on YouTube. Well, of course it'll be on YouTube. I'm hoping it will also be on Spotify. I'm still finalizing that for the previous episodes. And yeah, we'll see you in 2 weeks, hopefully with a collab. If not, it will be the episode after where we get someone else on this show. As always, if you want to join us on the podcast, then please either message me or the Optimist on Discord or drop us an email. And as always, guys, thank you all for watching and have a glowing day.